Welcome to the Interreg Italia Malta I Know seminars. This is seminar 6.1, The Shape of Finance and Funding Strategies Needed for Sustainability. You can see that track 6 relates to raising finance for your business, and that's typically looking at what you need and the types of money that can be available. Now, business finance in general, we would say can be described as three main forms in terms of reporting. They are a cash flow forecast. This is a budget. It's a forecast, so it's a prediction. It's looking into the future. A profit and loss looks backwards and indicates the profitability or lack of it over a period of time. A balance sheet is a snapshot. It's a statement of assets and liabilities at a specific time. Of those, the most important one for the startup business is the cash flow forecast, since a new business will have no trading history from which a profit and loss account can be drawn. And a sensible startup will not be using cash to buy a lot of things, so it may not have assets on the balance sheet. Really important then to recognise that when you're asked as a startup to provide a profit and loss or a balance sheet, those are created from your cash flow forecast. They're not historic documents. You'll see on slide 5 that we're asking the question, what really matters? And of course, for a new startup that's not yet started trading, only the cash flow forecast has value since it's looking forward. And any profit and loss and or balance sheet would only be derivations of that forecast for a specific point in the future. Nevertheless, many grant funders, particularly bankers, insist on the submission of a P&L and a balance sheet to accompany any request for funding. We think if you're going to do that, get your accountant to do those for you. We'd like you to create the cash flow forecast yourself, get the accountant to check it, but the creation of the profit and loss account and a balance sheet, ask your accountant to prepare those for you. As you can see in slide number 6, the title poses the question, why do startups need cash? And the answer is very simple. Cash should be used to make progress and not to make purchases. This is particularly true for enterprises that seek funding via equity finance from investors, since those businesses need to increase their value prior to sale. In other words, make progress. So the focus is on operational expenditure and not on buying things, capital expenditure. Why do startups buy things? Well, it can be pragmatic and sensible to buy a building or another asset so that if anything goes wrong with the business, there's an asset to sell. But, that thinking is possibly flawed. It's more sensible to wait until the business becomes profitable before buying things. But even then, it may be better to buy a building via a commercial mortgage, for example, rather than using up cash. So a good management team should use money to make money. And so using cash to make purchases at startup limits that opportunity to make progress. Here is a simple graph that illustrates the shape of business finance and that applies to most businesses. You can see that the horizontal axis is time and the vertical axis is cash. You'll see that to begin with, the cash position becomes negative, going into the red. And over a period of time, that continues to get worse until at the bottom of that curve, it turns the corner. This is the break-even point, and then goes up again. At some point, it goes over the horizontal line, and that means that you now have a positive cash balance at the bank. And then it continues to grow until the business achieves some kind of stability. The point here is that most businesses need cash at the beginning, and the critical thing is how much and for how long. So clearly, although after a period of time, the more going out than coming in, that trend reverses, the break-even point occurs. It's not necessarily the break-even point where you have cash in the bank. You could still be in the red, as it were, at that point. Crossing the black line, the horizontal axis, simply means that there is a positive bank balance. It's not the true break-even point in trading terms. Is the shape common? Yes. Most startups have more cash going out than coming in at the outset. So how do you cope with that? Well, of course, it depends on how much money you need and how long you need it for. Here are some of the ways that people cope with that. First of all, savings of the founder, perhaps grant funding from authorities or government, loans from family or friends, crowdfunding, debt finance, a bank loan, or equity finance selling shares in the company. But revenue, sales, we can't use that early on because we're not going to be making enough sales to begin with to cover all of our costs. That's the typical reality. So the impact of startup finance then is very simple. It moves our curve above the line, assuming you've raised what you need. Now, the amount that you need is often underestimated by founders who frequently overestimate sales at the start and hence underestimate the amount of startup finance that they require. So the rule is always raise what you need and to be careful to calculate exactly what you need. That's the end of this short presentation. We hope you find it helpful and good luck with your own business.